Good morning or afternoon. This is my report about Chapter 8. Exercise of religious beliefs, privilege of inmates or detainees to marry and their rights to be visited by their family, relatives, and friends. Exercise of religious beliefs and practices. Religious freedom. The religious beliefs and moral perceptions of an inmate shall be respected. Religious freedom. This is important to everyone because we are sinners, we are not perfect. Only one perfect in this world. It is only God. Human beings are innately religious. Our nature impels us to seek answers to profound questions about ultimate things. Why do we have religious freedom? Religious freedom protects people's rights to live, speak, and act according to their beliefs, peacefully and publicly. It protects their ability to themselves at work, in class, and social activities. Proselytizing. No prison officially shall proselytize inmates under his provisions or allow any inmates to do so without the consent of the inmate concerns. Reasonable opportunity, the access shall be provided to inmates requesting information about the activities of any religious with whom they may not be actually affiliated. Proselytize is to preach your religions or beliefs, especially to convert others or to promote a certain course of actions. An example of proselytize is when you explain Christian theology to try to convince your agnostic friends to join the Christian faith. Pastoral visits. An accredited priest minister may be allowed to hold regular services and to pay pastoral visits in private to inmates of his religious. As such, however, as a visit to a penal superintendent. Pastoral visit in inmates to hear the word of God in inmate because to maintain faithful of inmates in God. All inmates are big sinners because all of them are committing an illegal act. That's why the pastoral visit an inmate to share the word of God, for their personality will be new and faithful in God. Worship services. Attendance by an inmate or worship to services and similar religious activities shall be on voluntary basis. Many jails and prisons sub-chaplains are able to offer religious programs for inmates. Some do not. Typically, religious programming in a jail is fairly limited because of lack of space and lack of security staffs that will be required to oversee the classes and or worship services. Detainees in prisons have the right to freedom of religion. There should be no discrimination based on religion, and detainees equally have the right not to subscribe to a religion. Sponsor in a religious rights. A person, officials, employee, guard, and or their husbands or wives and children shall not act as a sponsor or otherwise actively participate in any religious rites or activity involving an inmate or member of the immediate family of an inmate. Sponsor and companions remind us that we are participating in a process of conversations which involves a person's experience of being welcome into a faith community of human persons. Currently, many correctional inmates practice their religions on an individual basis or with the structure of an organized religious program. Religious programs are commonplace in jails and prisons, and research indicates that 1 in 3 inmates participate in some religious program during their incarceration. Privileged communications. All personal communications of an inmate to a prison chaplain or priest, either as a formal act of religion or as a matter of conscience, shall be treated as privileged communications. The chaplain or priest shall not be required to disclose said communications. Privileged communications is an interactions between two parties in which the law recognizes a private protected relationships privilege and designated as a legal or confidential. Having been designated as such, privilege shall not be ready upon jail staff. Dietary requirements. Inmates observing religious or celebrations may be given raw rations or special diets in accordance with their beliefs. The cost thereof shall be limited to the recommended daily per capita. In view of total reliance of detainees on prison authorities for their basic needs, the provision of clean water at all times and good quality food is essential to maintaining their health and strength. Detainees should have access to sufficient quantity of clean water at all times. Available water supply should cover the drinking water needs of inmates and staff, and also be sufficient for food preparations, personal hygiene, cleaning, watering, and any other basic requirements. Eligibility to marry. The request of an inmate or detained to marry shall be approved provided the inmate or detained is legally eligible to marry and is mentally competent and the intended spouse has verified in writing in an intentions to marry the inmate or detained. Inmates must be under department jurisdictions for 1 year before beginning the marriage or state registered domestic partnership application process. A pretrial inmate may request permission to marry in accordance with the provisions of this rule. Staff shall contact the court U.S. attorney and in the case of alien, the Immigration and Naturalization Service that advise to marriage request to pretrial inmates and to request their comments. Marriage expenses. All expenses of the marriage license shall be paid by the inmates. A federal inmates confined in a bureau institutions who wants to get married shall submit a request to marry to the inmates unit team. The warden shall notify the inmates in writing whether the inmate's request to marry is approved or disapproved. A copy of this notification shall be placed in the inmate's central file. Privacy of visits. Prison's guard shall supervise the visiting area in an unobtrusive manner. They shall not eavesdrop or on conversations or otherwise interfere with the privacy of the inmates of his visitor. Our research has revealed that when families must travel great distance to visit loved ones in prisons, visitation declines. We've also uncovered how sheriffs and private companies use video calling to eliminate human contact and have worked to protect in-person jail visits nationwide. Generally, prison officials have wide latitude to craft policies including visitation policies that maintain institution security and inmate discipline. Conjugal visits. A male inmate may enjoy conjugal visits from his spouse in prisons where there are facilities. Therefore, under such conditions may be prescribed by the director. A scheduled period in which an inmate of a prison or shall is permitted to spend several hours or days in private with visitors. The visitor usually their legal spouse and visits for usually sexual activity. Visit of legal counsel. An inmate may be visited by his legal counsel of record unreasonable hours of the day or night. Prison authorities are responsible for providing adequate opportunities, time, and facilities for detained to be visited by and confidentially communicate and consult with a lawyer or their choice of one appointed of them by the states. Violations of visiting rules. Any circumventions or violations of visiting rules by the inmate or his visitor shall result in the suspension or derivation of visiting privilege, the initiations of disciplinary actions against the entering inmate. Bureau Operating Manual 2000. Violations of rules may be handled informally by verbal reprimand or by a more formal process where the correction officer quit rights up court and prisoners' right of results in a disciplinary hearing. These hearings are usually very short, informal proceedings without lawyers and without a jury. Punishment for most infractions involves being given extra work duty, being temporarily restricted to their cells or bunk, or experiencing temporary loss of recreation time, commissionary privilege, and or visitation rights. Prisoners usually get very upset when written is up for rule violations. All disciplinary cases they receive become part of their permanent record, may be used to deny them access to certain security classifications, prison, jobs, educational programs, re-entry programs, or parole. That's on my report of Chapter 8. Thank you.